everybody, to Soul Butter. And
Hello.
today, oh my goodness. So I know we usually come on with a very organized framework for what we're going to talk about. But I think this is really going to be, for those of you who don't know Amy and I personally, I feel like I should tell you that we both have a very prophetic gift. And in that prophetic gift, God speaks to us about the season. And sometimes we get downloads about where we're all sitting collectively before it really hits anybody else. And that can be, and I know I come from, a spiritual cultural background where psychic abilities are like this coveted gift, right? It's like everybody wants to be psychic. And, there's two sides to this sword, the sword of truth. There is this brilliance and this awe and wonder of the downloads and information that comes in. But the other side of it is that often, and this is where I am grateful every day for my tribe, that I can speak so vulnerably and so naked in the language that comes from the Holy Spirit, comes from God, comes from spirit, comes from the universe, because you can't talk to everybody like that. And we could be sitting on something for months, even longer, these downloads of information. And then months and months go by and suddenly we start seeing it hit, right? We'll start seeing it show up on social media, These topics repeating. And then Egan and I get all excited in our synchronicity aggression of like, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're going to do a little bit of everything today. I think we're going to dip into the prophetic season, the energy of the season, not just where we are, but potentially where we're going. We're also going to be just vulnerable and share a little bit about our testimonies, which we always do. We want you to know authentically where we are and what we're experiencing. And a lot of the things that we want to share with those of you who are tuning in are the things that we're all going through, together. And then we're going to get a little nerdy and talk about some science stuff too. So we're going to kind of hit all the buttons today. We are just kind of loosely wanted to use a target of reframing this season, reframing those things that we're going through, at the same time legitimately honoring where we're at, but potentially offering you a different lens to look through in order to be involved in the season of growth that is proving to be quite challenging for a lot of us. And the biggest theme that we seem to be collectively challenged by is our emotions. And do we have the emotional intelligence of self to be able to ride the wave that we're on right now, to understand, be able to identify where we're being pointed in our growth patterns, to be able to identify those things that we've outgrown and potentially we need to let go of. But do we even have the language to be able to describe what it is that we're experiencing right now? And that can create fear and it can create anxiety. And the sense of being vulnerable is something that we often put a negative turn on, when really it's just the heart being broken open. And so what we want to try to do is talk real life to you guys today, but be able to give you a new, to reframe these things and a new perspective on it.
Yeah, so I just want to continue on. I posted a clip from our last episode when I was talking about how God spoke to me, feelings are fickle and not of me. And what a journey it's been since then. That was in 2018. And usually when God speaks something like that to me, I have no idea what he's talking about. And so I go on a journey. Of course, right around then, Jenny and I have reconnected. She's the emotion code guru. And I've been on a roller coaster just learning about all of this stuff. So we are in Jenny's wheelhouse today, and I'm excited to see where this goes. But I can also share, as a person who is new to a lot of this stuff, what it feels and how I'm processing. I think a big thing that came up recently for me is another whisper from God that said, learn the difference between emotions and feelings. And that emotions are things that sit in your body, which I was like, oh, okay, I know that, because I know emotions can get trapped. Again, Jenny's wheelhouse. But the feelings are the way that we react. And those are the things that we get a choice. We get a choice. And that's what I think we're talking about today is that, okay, I'm experiencing this massive surge of anger. So that's a really good emotion that it's a road sign. It can tell you if you're paying attention and if you are, as you say, emotionally intelligent enough to know, and your IQ is high enough to go, at least to stop and say, okay, what is this emotion telling me? Anger. As we've discussed, I heard it said, anger, and this really relates to me, is just is a sign to tell you where you've lacked boundaries. So for me, in my life, that's exactly when it comes up. What did you say today?
The language that I was given was that anger is a direct response to unfulfilled desires.
Right. So unfulfilled desires, maybe in my case, because I haven't put up the correct boundaries.
Right. And it comes back to
is,
boundaries.
yeah, this is my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is lack of boundary, learning lack of boundaries, toxic empathy, people pleasing. This is what I've been learning about. And just, going back to emotions, it's being able to, as Jenny said, being so grateful to have Jenny in my life and some others that at least understand, at least I can speak to about this. They may have no clue what I'm talking about. Like, I'm angry today. I'm really angry. Let me get it out of my body because I don't want it trapped. But then also, you know me really well. Why am I really angry? Let me talk this out. Oh, I'm really angry because here comes this cycle again back in my life. Here comes this lesson. It's not that I haven't learned my lesson yet. It's just different levels. Now, I thought I was good at this. I thought I was good at putting a boundary here. I already put a boundary there. I am angry because I have to put another boundary down. That's what it came to for me. I have to why do I have to keep putting this boundary down? God, And so then I'm digging. And, without telling you every detail of my life, really, it just comes down to, for me, the root of abandonment, which is crazy how it all connects. So all of these things have roots. Your emotions have roots, right? So it's like the tree, the emotions have a root to it. And then it burrs the trunk, the emotion, and then the branches are your feelings. And you get to see the fruits of your feelings. Like, we're walking through this life having all these feelings, and it's like, just stop if you can, as Jenny and I are going to teach you today. How do you stop? What is this feeling? Where is it coming from? What emotion? And why do I have that emotion? Where is the birth of that emotion in my life?
And, as you're talking about the different levels of emotions and feelings, it's like the emotions basically are the core, right? And then the feelings are various expressions of those emotions based
Right.
on our circumstances, our personality, the way we were raised, our belief systems.
Right.
There's certain routes that we will take and that our biology is more ingrained with. It's like
Yes.
going back to those ravines on the mountainside, right? It's like we have autopilot settings that, like,
Yes.
every time I get angry, I cry. Like, it's just like an instant response. But there's
Right.
different levels of anger, right? There's frustration, there's irritability, there's resentment. Oh, and by the way, guilt. So if you're not really good at getting angry, you will transfer it into feeling guilty, right? I don't know what to do with anger, so I will feel guilt, shame, persecution. I'll feel those things instead, right?
And
So
I want to note really quick, because I wanted to make sure I brought this up today. Um, I've been working with some clients when talking about getting emotions trapped in the body, and we try to figure out where it was coming from. Sometimes emotions get trapped, not just because you feel them a lot, but they literally aren't expressed at all. So
right.
sometimes, while we're using anger as an example, sometimes people aren't even taught people are taught anger is bad, right? A lot of little girls are taught anger is bad. You don't get to be angry. Calm down, calm down. What's wrong? It's like, I don't get to be angry because it means that I have feelings. And I've witnessed a lot of women more of the ones that walk around, they seem so peaceful. And it's awesome. But guess what? Sometimes they haven't mastered anger because
Mhm.
anger is trapped in their body somewhere because they really don't even know. One time I told a client, like, you have permission to be angry, right? And they were like, it was like, like, I can be angry. Yeah, you can be, you're allowed to, things are allowed to anger you. But here's the thing, like we'll get into, like, it's what you do with the anger. I'm not telling you to get angry and cuss everyone out. I'm just saying allow yourself to feel anger. Let it come up out of you and let's put it on the table and let's dissect it. Let's have a little fun with it and not put so much pressure on yourself to be feeling all these emotions.
Right. And so what's anger reframed? Like we think about the fact that if so our part of our physiology and our biology is that, okay, so let's look at the fact that our body produces all of these different chemical compounds, amino acids, and then these neurotransmitter signals, like all of these different things that are like happening in our body at every millisecond, right?
Right.
We cannot experience an emotional response without these chemicals in our body. Otherwise, our emotional responses become very one-dimensional, right? Because we can only go from here to here because our body's in a deficiency of all of those dynamic things that are happening each and every day, that alchemy, that magic inside of our body that allows us to have a range of an emotional experience. And also take those emotional experiences and mix it with our reasoning, right? So we have a balance between our emotions and our mind. But there are organs that are directly responsible for releasing specific chemical compounds that will then create specific emotions, right? There's also energetic jobs that different organs have associated with different emotions, right? So the liver is associated with anger. Okay. And we think about all the different jobs that the liver has. It's also located in the solar plexus chakra. Our solar plexus is actually part of the anatomy, right? When we think about our midsection is the solar plexus. That's also the name of the chakra, the energy center of that area of the body where a lot of these organs are located. Now, what's the purpose of anger? It's to create a passionate response to something, right? And so if you're reframing what often is looked at as a very negative response, people don't like to see other people in anger because they feel threatened by it, which is a natural, primal, organizational, mother nature thing that is in our survival skill set.
It almost feels like you're being attacked when someone else is angry.
Yes.
Like if you're in a room where someone's really angry, you can feel it and it's like run, whatever your stress response is. Maybe it's to fight them back,
Run
but
away.
mine is to run and go hide in a corner.
Yes. So it's understandable that most of us would not know how to deal with anger from a positive uptake presentation because we were never taught that. We were just taught run away, run away, run away, run away, right?
Or fight back. I know people
Yes.
that are taught to fight back. If you get angry with me, what? Like, even if you're not even angry with me, you're angry. I'm rising up and my chest is puffed out and I'm ready to go. And people don't even understand why they're reacting that way. That's the way they're taught.
So we're here to kind of give you an idea, something that you might be able to work with just inside of your own level of consciousness. And it's reframing that anger. First of all, you've got to ask yourself the questions, right? Amy and I do this every single time we're on here. Ask yourself the why, right? Like get into the origin of it. And it might be layers. Like, why am I feeling angry right now? Well, because that person just said that to me. Okay, so what about what they just said to you triggered you, right? What in that statement got under your skin? So you basically have to wire yourself down to wherever the trigger is, right? And figure out why that particular statement would set you off versus if they had said it in a different way, right? So once we wire ourselves into a place, we will realize that our boundaries have been violated in some way, right? But we have to drill down to what that looks like for us. And so we would passionately respond to being restricted in some way from expressing ourselves or being able to birth something or create something or do something, right? It's unfulfilled desires, right? It's being able to express oneself from a passionate place of desire. And something in your environment comes in and shuts that down. So why do you allow it to be shut down? Because you have shitty boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
And the person that you're dealing with probably has shitty boundaries, right? So this is why God has us practicing over and over again, laying down these repetitive boundaries, because we have to retrain everyone else in our environment. We'll come back to that later. But the idea of being able to understand that anger is not a negative response. It's a response that says, I'm incredibly passionate about this thing. And it's not right that anybody stand in the way, or I allow my circumstance, the storm of life, my other feelings, another person's insecurities, whatever is in your environment at that time or what you're coming up against, being able to say, I deserve to follow through with my passionate desire to birth this thing into the world, speak my truth, whatever it is, right? But with anger, it's training it and really understanding it, because it can be explosive and we can get into a defensive place where we say the wrong thing or we attack another person, where we weaponize the anger instead of using it as fuel to push us forward into the very thing that we were restricted from having in the first place.
And for me, going back to boundaries and anger, if I can use, I have two choices when I feel anger. Now, having the intelligence that I have about anger, around anger, is I've lacked boundaries. So still, even though I know it's a boundary that I've lacked, I still want to fight. I still want to say, you should have, you didn't know, I told you, and you didn't respect my boundaries. I could react like that if I wanted to. Or I can say, I am responsible for myself. I am not responsible for anyone else. How can I handle this? How can I handle my anger that in a way that feels connected to something divine, what it's teaching me, and what does it feel like and feel back to the body? What would it feel like to operate in establishing the boundary that allows that anger to be, I guess, subside, like that heavy emotion to subside? What is it going to take? They say don't act in anger, right? Don't go to bed in anger. Don't act in anger. Like, you shouldn't act in your anger unless it is something that you've taken time to say, what would feel good to me? I'm not saying it's not scary, because it doesn't feel good to establish a boundary that you've had a hard time establishing. So say it's even a friend who's kind of repeatedly said something to you that you don't like. Now you get angry and you want to lash out at them. Even if you've established a boundary for, don't say that to me. I don't like when you say that to me. Then they say it again. What are you going to do with that anger? Maybe it's that friend shouldn't be in your life like that anymore. Maybe that's the boundary. Maybe it's to have a serious talk, So, but it's definitely not, I told you, because that's when you said the propulsion, anger can be this force behind you. It can become a force that gets your mouth to just go. There's a lot of people like that. That's deep down in me. I got the Italian in me that's like doing this all the time. Like and the funny thing about me is, and this is, for me being kind of immature with this, emotionally, I'm working through it. I need to have friends like Jenny I can go to and be like, blah, 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 and, nah, 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 nah. And then when I'm done, I'm like, that feels, that feels so much better. Thanks. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do that. You know what? I'm going to just sit with this for a day, and I'm going to see how it feels. And tomorrow, it usually feels different. And a lot of times, if it's that charged, if that emotion is that charged, there's something really big there that you're missing. And I know what it is for me. It's always another dang boundary. Like, I'm so sick of boundaries. I'm like, look, God, look at me. I put down a boundary. He's like, you're going to have to do it like 10 more times.
Right.
I'm like, I already did it one time. No, you're going to have to do it again and again and again until you feel it in your being. It's not just like, I said it, I did it. It's in your being deep down till it becomes who you are. And you don't have to mess with that same cycle again coming back up, because it is who I am now. This is what I'm owning. And that anger, it's like emotions are like, I want to say like a coach or a trainer. Like they're like, hey, look, you have something to work on now. And then I also wanted to say something, again, this coming from baseline level understanding of this stuff. I think it will help others that don't really understand. I was kind of mind blown that love isn't an emotion. Love
Mm,
is a feeling, which made sense because when he said to me, feelings are fickle, not of me, love was the feeling that was flying around all different places. Love is something that you get to choose how to handle, right? But emotions are things like happiness. Like to me, that's a feeling. Like when I was talking to
joy.
you about this,
Joy is
joy.
really the emotion, and then
Okay.
the feelings that come from joy are, the happiness, fulfillment,
Okay.
things like that. Gratitude is an emotion, and from a place of gratitude, you experience love and, different things
Okay.
like that. I mean, love technically is the stitching agent of everything, right? But it is more like we think of it as a noun when it's actually really a verb,
Right.
when it's and this is, something I learned early on. When you break apart the word emotion, it's emotion, energy in motion, right?
Mm,
And so, those different the way, and this is why I love the introduction of the Brene Brown book, The Atlas of the Heart. It's like an encyclopedia of language that you can use to explain the way that you're feeling, all
hmm
of the different things that are going on inside of your filter of your experience, your thoughts, the values of, all of those things mixed together to create an emotional experience.
hmm
And so the more vocabulary, the more language you have to explain and be able to
Yes.
pinpoint exactly how you're experiencing that emotion in all of its feelings, right?
hmm
And what expression of that emotion are you in right now? It
hmm
really helps us to identify, why are we not on fire with rage? Why are we just kind of irritated? Like what about it just kind of hit us wrong? It,
Right.
it can really give you an insight as to how deep the wound really is.
Yeah. And another emotion I was thinking about that when I was studying about this is like disgust. Um, and I just thought about that, how like disgust can that be, that's an emotion, right? So that's something that's just happening in your body, your disgust. But to me, all the filters, like you said, the identity, the personality, what are the things that truly disgust you? That's the one that has like just big thick lid on it to me. Like the things that are disgusting really will show you a lot about who you are and what you need to work on. I think about in the religious context, like when people are from the church are like so disgusted in things. Why are you so disgusted about that one or two things? Why
Mm-hmm.
are you not disgusted about other things? Like, again, this is just about like digging down into this root emotion that like, and also like, I think it goes back to the very first thing you said, I think, is that emotions aren't anything to feel bad about.
Mm-hmm.
They're very natural to the physical, it's the physiological makeup of who we are. Like the anger, the disgust, the joy, the things that we feel are very natural. And I think that especially women, because we tend to be, which we say, more emotional, which now I say, no, we're not. We just have a lot more feelings. Like it really isn't. We're all the same emotion, right? But like all of the feelings that come from all of the emotion, the root of the emotion, we don't have to feel bad about the emotion. It's okay to have it's not just okay, it is who we are. And that's what I love when you were saying about like that anger is in the liver, like that's what I love about what you do, is that that's another way that we can figure out, it's another code that God gave us to figure out like, what are you experiencing? Now we can go backwards the other way. Jenny, I don't know what has been going on, but like my side has been hurting. Well, where is that? And I can come to you and say, where is it? And then you come back and give me an answer. And I'm like, what? I was feeling that emotion. And then I think about it, I pray about it, I meditate on it. And God is like, well, yeah. And it's been stuck for years. That's why I just love all of this stuff. Cause it's it's kind of like, I want to say a blueprint because we use that word a lot, but it's the answer key, you
Mhm.
know, and that's what you do. And that's what I love. I love about what I've been learning from you.
Well, let's talk about dig into that a little bit more. So I love it when one of my clients, is in a season of detox, and, I give them some pointers on, some ways to go for that, physical, emotional, spiritual detox, whatever that looks like. And how, like, 1 or 2 weeks in, maybe week 3, and I ask them how they're feeling, and they're like, I'm just so pissed off. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
so irritable and I'm so angry and I
Mhm.
don't know what to do about it. Well, hello, you're detoxing your liver. So all of the stuff
Woo.
you've been swallowing it down and swallowing it down and swallowing, it's like taking a shot of poison every single day, right?
Ah.
Like that emotion comes up and you stuff it back down, right? It comes up, you stuff it. I mean, how many times can you swallow that poison? It's
Mhm.
like swallowing vomit. If your body wants to get it
Yeah.
out, get it out. Like, you don't want to swallow that back
Right.
down.
And we don't want to feel it. We don't want to feel it. And you got to feel it to heal it.
Yeah.
You don't, I don't want to feel irritable. I mean, and when you said stuff down, that's exactly how I feel. Jenny, I feel this way. I feel that way. And that's what we're saying. Feel it. You
Mm-hmm.
have to feel it. It's okay.
So what happens if you are just pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing
Ew.
it down? So let me tell you what happens. Your liver gets congested with emotional toxicity the same way that your liver gets congested with environmental toxins and the food that you're eating and the fatty deposits that are building up around it because of all the visceral organ fats that are in your body because of the bad food that you're eating. It, like, there are the physical things that can happen through food we eat, air we breathe, water we drink, right?
Mm.
Pesticides, plastic particles. I mean, you could go on and on with the amount of stuff that our poor liver has to filter out on a daily basis, right? Then you put emotional toxicity on top of that. So your liver is busy not only generating the emotion each and every day,
Mhm.
but now it has to regurgitate it, stuff it back down in, and find a place to put it, right? Because it's energy, it's got to go somewhere, right? So if you don't take 90 seconds, 90 seconds is how long it takes for an emotional response to communicate through the entire body. 90 seconds is how long you have to sit with something to allow it to run its entire course. And we can't even sit with it for 2,
Right.
right? 90 seconds, a minute and a half is all is required. So we will stuff it down, we'll drink that poison. Eventually, our liver gets to a place where it cannot, there's no space. Okay. It's run out of space. So what happens in the body? You start to get toxic leak, which turns into leaky gut, right? It turns into actual liver pain, liver congestion, fatty liver disease. Okay. What starts to happen? You start to have an overage of allergies. Guess what else can't work if your liver is congested? Your thyroid. Okay. Your
Mm.
thyroid now doesn't work. Okay. And people are wondering why I'm just taking more Synthroid and more Synthroid and more Synthroid to balance my thyroid, but the medication isn't working. Well, it's because your liver is overtoxified and can't process the pharmaceuticals that you're taking, and there's no space for the T3 to get made, right? So it's nothing stands in isolation of anything else. And here we are thinking if we just ignore our emotions, everything's going to be fine. It is until your body starts to shut down on you.
Right. When you said emotion, I'm sure you've said it 5,000 times to me, but I have my health coach say to me, Amy, emotion is just energy emotion. And I don't know why when she said it, I was like, oh my gosh, like everything made sense to me. And now it's like when I have friends that are experiencing pain of any sort or some kind of ailment that the doctors can't figure out, I'm always sending them to Jenny, like Jenny will help you because really that is what our bodies are. And people don't understand, like our bodies are just an expression of who we are, our minds and our emotions. And our bodies are just reacting to what we tell it and how we feel. And so when we have all of these, like I get a lot of pain and I actually have this really weird I don't know what it is, but it's almost like an empathic pain. Like I can feel like if my dad's, I remember one time my dad's like inside left side had a rash on it. And I didn't know. And at the same time, I had it and I called and I realized like I have my dad's rash pain. I'm like, it's just crazy. I'm like, God, we're gonna have to stop this. I don't know. But this was prior to me this is prior to Jenny really. Jenny was kind of coming into my life. And when I say that, I mean, like we lived our lives for a little while touching base, but when we really, got back together talking often. And it was around this time, like, thank God he knew my twin was going to be doing this stuff because I experienced the ailments of everybody else. And I've been able to consciously like protect myself from that, I think a lot more. But it's just amazing to really, and I noticed too, because I'm so new at this, that like when I go to explain it to people, they kind of give me like the dog head tilt, like. So I think that that's a beautiful way of, for me, it clicked with me when you said energy emotion is emotion. Like to me, it made it so physical. And that's what I learned when God said, you need to know the difference between emotion and feelings. Emotion is physical. And another mind blown. And then I came to you and you're like, well, yeah. I mean, it is who we are. It is part of our identity, which is what I love to coach on identity. It is really, like I said, it is the physical nature of who we are. And to me, that's just such a beautiful piece of information that can change our lives.
I agree. It's what differentiates us from the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
It's because we do have to remember our humanness, and this is why the combination of the emotional intelligence and the ability to reason, when we bring those two things together, gives us this entirely different dynamic of self. And we really can understand ourselves on a completely different level when we do honor ourselves as flesh and blood. We do honor ourselves as a human being that has a critter brain, that has a natural survival instinct, that has these emotions that were built into our biology in order to keep us alive and keep us happy, and making sure, like, just like, I would say there's a feeling of being hungry, right? There's a feeling of being thirsty. Like, you don't have an emotion of hunger. You have a feeling of hunger, right? You have a feeling of thirst. You have an itchy feeling, right? Like there's this idea of that part of our ability to navigate this earth and this material plane is to have these feelings as tools. And then there's the graduated feelings and emotions that tap into that higher consciousness, right? The sentience, the ability to be sentient beings. This is where the soul really starts to come in, right? And so we don't realize how valuable the time with our emotions can be for us on a spiritual level, a soul level. The same time, you were saying, this morning, it's like, why do you go for a walk? Right? Some people do it purely for the fitness of it, right? Mm-hmm. But like, I have lots of fitness options, and there are certain days where I'm like, no, I need to go for a walk today. I need to be under the sky. I need to be under the trees. I need to see the birds flying. I need to smell the air. I need to work this out. Like, Egan and I are walking partners a lot of times on Marco Polo. Like, we work shit out while we're on books, and so it's not just fitness time for me. This is mental release time. It's emotional balancing time. It's, for me to get my adrenals kind of balanced out. Like, it is holistic. It hits me on a physical, emotional, and mental level, and all of those things together, then combined with our soul, like on that spiritual level. Now, you've done something for every part of self in that day. That's what it looks like for me. It could look very different for somebody else.
It's funny because I have this article you sent me this morning, and I just popped it up because I wanted to refer to it. And as you were talking, what I read was walking the activity of the liver, useful because it helps spread or harmonize liver. How do you say that? QI.
the ki or chi, the ki energy, which is life force energy of the
Right.
organ
I
itself.
didn't want to get it wrong. Okay, so let's go back. Walking, the activity of the liver, is useful because it helps spread or harmonize the liver chi. Spread, as the term used in TCM, refers to what we in the West experience as a kind of equalizing our thoughts and feelings. So whenever we feel extreme anger and frustration, one of the best and most immediate remedies is to take a walk. Now that's talking about how like physically you're walking, but the physical nature of walking can actually help reduce your anger because of what's physically happening in the body. So I just love that you brought that up, because one of the things as a health coach I love to do is to check on people's just normal everyday activity in order to get in touch with these emotions and these feelings and to analyze. It's not just like you have time during the day to be like, oh, I'm experiencing anger. Let me stop and call my friend, right? It's like, what can you do? What can you do in these moments of extreme emotion? Again, and let's just think about it, even when it's positive. Like, I'm experiencing so much joy right now. Like sometimes it's kind of fun to be like, let me figure out where that's coming from, because if I know the root of that, I can go tap into that more often. And that's what brings me joy. So I need to get more of that in my life. So all of this stuff is just a beautiful way to grow and get better. So one of the things on this this article that you sent me this morning was all about the liver and anger, which is really cool, is what we've been covering today. You can reduce stress through your lifestyle change, meditation and breath work, which we talk about all the time, social connection. Like we don't understand, we learned a lot from quarantine, but every time that I know, and I see it in my friend group, when we're really starting to get a lot of those feelings, it's because you haven't been with your people. Like sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be your people. Sometimes it can just be the energy that you experience from just going out to eat. And maybe it is with a friend, but you have that energy from people. I love hiking, and I joined hiking groups when I was out in LA. And I didn't necessarily have to like be walking with a specific person, just being around other people like filled me up in a way to just give me that, as I just said, we're talking about what can you do in your body to move this energy. That's what we're talking about. I'm not just talking about feel better. I'm not angry anymore because I took a walk, even though that is what we say. I'm going to calm down. I got to go take a walk, right? That's what we say. But what is actually happening in your body that allows that anger to subside, right? So anyway, social connection, creativity, balanced exercise and movement. You know, I had to go to the gym yesterday. That's my thing. I suffer with a lot of anger. And I know now why, because I've had a lifetime full of boundary issues. That's why I have so much anger. And so for me to take, I just thought I'm going to go work out. All I know is I feel better after that workout. But now I know something is actually physically moving, that emotion. I'm actually connecting my body to what's happening in, I'll say, the spirit world, really, like our soul. What's happening in my soul connect to my body, movement, walk, working out, again, and then other things like the social connection, acupuncture, and sometimes the one we all love, sometimes rest. Because when we're busy, man, like that rest is not happening. But when we do rest, we know, what do you need to do? A lot of times we're like, I just need a day off. I just want to Netflix and chill, and I don't even want to think. Like, what are these things that we can do to get the energy, get that emotion to move? If it isn't sitting in your liver, what can you do? I got to build up. I'm forcing it down, forcing it down. We're giving you toolboxes, as we always do. We're giving you a toolbox to figure out, what can I do when I'm experiencing this heightened emotion? And once you do get that energy moving around in your body, we're saying, hey, let's sit down and let's talk about, where is that? Where are all these feelings coming from? And how do you handle that? Are you okay with that emotion? Are you okay with anger? Are you okay with feeling disgust? Are you okay with these things? Like, are you giving yourself grace? And let's take the feelings, and after you've gotten your body to, it subsides, that charge subsides, move it around in your body, get right. Now let's talk about it. Let's journal. Let's talk to a friend. Let's go to a coach that can help us work through these things.
And let's emphasize the need to support the physical body in this process, because so many of us that are products of the Western medicine allopathic tradition, when Amy was just reading that article and she said TCM, what she was referring to is traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, so Eastern medicine has always honored the emotionality of the body and the emotional self as part of overall well-being and wellness, right? So, we have Germany, who is literally on top of their game as far as frequency healing goes, understanding the energy frequencies that our body is emitting, and how to work with the physics of our body, right? Like that level of science. And, the idea of the traditional Chinese medicine is also about frequency as well. If we look at acupuncture, working with those energy flow, the flow of qi in the body, using natural herbs and tinctures in order to provide the body with that deficit or that frequency need that it has through something natural that has life force to it, right? They focus on moving life force, not all the fake food that we eat that literally has zero life force in it, right? So we are eating something that has zero nutritional value and no life force to it, right? So even those little bars and things that we can supplement our meals with that say that they're packed full of vitamins and minerals and all of these things, there's still no life force because it was never alive, right? So this idea of putting life first as far as priority, and what are the different parts of that life force. And, so from the physical perspective of moving emotional energy, we are not our bodies. I know that we have become a product of that, right? Because of our social culture, where we are our bodies. Our worth is our body, right? What it looks like, all of those things. We come from Western medicine culture that says that we are our illness, right? Like it's not, an illness is not a symptom of something else that's going on. It's, you are that thing now. You are cancer, you are MS, you are lupus, you are chronic anxiety disorder, you are ADHD, you are autism, you are these things, right? The body is an expression of our soul, our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, okay? The body is constantly taking orders, constantly. It is not the other way around. It is not the other way around. So if you have something going on a physical level, it's because your body has been told to do it, right? So if we're going to dig in, let's say that we've identified that anger is a major issue for you and you want to start working on that. You are going to also need to supplement some sort of detox program for the organ itself on a physical level. Because when you tell the body, you set the intention, I'm going to release this anger. How does the body actually do that on a physical level? The body isn't just going to emit the anger energy out. It's got to move it through the tissues. It's got to move it through the cells. It's got to move it through its physical manifestation of flesh. Okay. And it's going to do what it knows how to do to release, which is detoxification. So your responsibility is to support the physical release of whatever energy that you are attempting to move on an emotional level. Okay. So, this, we'll go into it another time, but can we talk about the crazy physical manifestations of the things that happened to all of us after the Putting You First retreat?
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to tell people. They might not want to come. Just kidding. Jeez. Seriously.
Serious. Like, we're laughing about it now, but there wasn't a single person that walked away from that weekend without something physical to resolve, because they cracked open something that had been the container for all the stuff. stuffing it down, stuffing it down, stuffing it down, stuffing it down, right? You take
Yep.
one little moment of time to put yourself in front of all of those other people and start looking at what's going on with you. You open that up and everything wants to show itself. And then you've got to go back to normal life. So then it's, are you going back to the old boundary issues? Are you repairing? Are you continuing the work? Or did you just shut that box up again? And now there's like, it's like trying to put a lid back on a soda bottle that's already exploding. Like
It's still exploding.
you can't do it. And so it was, I mean, it was crazy. All of the different physical manifestations that were popping up based on the emotional work that we were doing together collectively.
Right. And that's why, God has led us. And Jenny she's talking about the retreat that was birthed out of my experience of my rebirth. But I pulled Jenny in because she's my twin and she had to be there, but also to do the work she does. And I think this is why God is trying to weave us together even more, because I call myself the excavator. Like, I'm going to pull all the stuff out of you, but once you have it all in your hand, I'm going to give you to Jenny. Because Jenny can help you. She can help you identify where the source in your body, where is the source of this pain or ailment or illness that maybe you didn't even know you had until you realize that this thing was a root inside of you. That's what I do. I go around pulling up roots. Like, God has given me this ability to look at somebody. I listen to them for a minute and I'm like, oh, that's because you, I mean, I do it in the gym. I'll walk up and somebody in the gym and they're like, how you been? And they're like, well, I'm suffering with this. And I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I pull out the root and I walk away. And I'm like, so if you need some coaching, you should probably call me. But seriously, like, I can identify the root, but this is why God has made sure that Jenny and I are crossing paths, because there's something that happens physically inside of you when you pull out a root. There's an empty space. And like I always say, I go back to scripture when I read the scripture that, and it's kind of like, if you want to talk about the demonic, the evil, whatever you want to say. I always like to preface that with, like, I don't see evil as other people do. I see evil as just these little, like, I'm gonna just plant these little seeds and they're gonna help them grow. But I'm pulling out the root and you leave this big gap. And it says in the Bible that when you remove a demon from the house, from its home, the host, it goes and gets its little friends. It goes and gets, is it seven of their friends, and brings them back and says, oh, look, there's a big hole. Let's come back. So you've got to do the work. That you start doing the work we're talking about right now. You've got to do the work to help yourself fill that hole back in with what is true and what is real. And we talk about the identity. We talk about identity being part of identity is your feelings, why you have the feelings from these emotions, right? So like, you start analyzing your feelings and you start getting down and you start pulling out roots, right? And then it's full of these big gaping holes. You have to figure out where God, that's where I go back to the love, God, all of the divine truths about yourself. That's what you have to start rebuilding your identity. So you know how to handle these emotions, but also going back to what you were saying, Jenny, is realizing that you've also physically pulled a root. You physically have a gaping hole in your body. Now, it could just be in like the sense that you said, like, you're shoving all the stuff down in your liver. Okay, let's let it out. Now what's going to go in the liver? What goes in there? How can you refill yourself? And sometimes you do need supplements. Sometimes there are things that you actually need to help out your body during this process. That's why I'm so glad that God has shown us we're going to work together more and more, especially on the next retreat, because we need to help people on the other end of this. We dig it out. We analyze it, we do the supplements, and we fill it back in by creating this new identity. Not creating, I would say, being able to understand the truth about who you are, who you were made to be. And it's not all of these reactions that you're having, feelings that you're having because of how you were raised, how your parents told you to do it, all of the trauma that's happened to you. I mean, the things that hit us the most, the feelings, the deepest feelings we have the most are tied to our trauma. Why do I feel like that? Do I really believe that? Because if I really believe that, that's my old identity. Who do I truly believe about myself? Now, I believe that if my root is abandonment, do I believe that God has abandoned me? Maybe I do right now. And so in the belief and the just the different exercises I have to do to, if I've identified this root is abandonment, do I really believe God will abandon me? Well, no, not deep down, but I need to feel it. I need to like have it set in my body that I do not believe God is going to abandon me in a place that like I've never been before. That's how you fill in the hole.
So, I mean, it just keeps going back again, round and round to our beliefs and our values, right? So the way that we think about things is a direct reflection of what our values and beliefs are, right? We think a certain way because we believe a certain way.
Right.
And then the way that we think about something is the way we see it. And then we have an emotional response because of that. Right.
That's right.
So we keep coming back, and this is the whole coaching process, is like drilling, right? You drill down into that fertile ground where the root has been ripped out, or you discover the root and it's a belief system or a value that is now misaligned with the authentic version of yourself that you're attempting to birth, right? Because that belief system or value system was fed to you, force fed. Right? Then you can actually start identifying those belief systems and values that are still current for you today. Like, no, that's like soul level connected. And I am aligned with that. And if anger comes from that, it's the passion to support it and go stand on a soapbox and tell the whole world, right? Like there's purpose that's in there, right? Like true soul level purpose that you've just identified. And then you realize that there's these other values and belief systems that have been force fed in that are now this giant roadblock that you just keep banging into when all the like the passion is there and the purpose is there and you dug into that, and now boom, you just keep hitting this cement wall. And then you suddenly realize someone comes along and gives you permission to not choose those things anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And we can have a whole host of feelings. So let's take that and bridge into the season. All right. Because I truly believe I'm going to jump into the future a little bit here. But from a perspective of where we are versus where we're going, right? Mm-hmm. And this idea of humanity experiencing a rise into truth. And we're talking the big T, like the big truth, not like personal truth. All right. We're rising into a bigger truth. We're rising into what being authentic actually means and what authentic actually feels like. We're starting to realize that all of this surface stuff that we're just touching for just a second, this instant gratification, this culture of instant gratification that doesn't even go skin deep anymore. You have no idea, moment to moment, of the content that you are consuming, what is real and what is not real. You have no idea. So person to person contact is coming back. The eye to eye, the handshake. Remember how business used to be done back in the day? Where you would actually schedule a face-to-face coffee meetup, shake someone's hand, right? Give a physical business card to someone, like the Rolodex. Like back before technology was king and created a culture of surface relationships. Friends. Oh, I have 2,000 friends. No, you don't.
Ha.
You don't have 2,000 friends.
No,
you have like 2 friends.
Right.
Not everybody is your friend, right?
Right.
So like this idea of what it is to be a part of a community, this idea of what it is to network, this idea of what it is to be in business, to do business, this idea of what authenticity looks like, right? Based on how well someone has branded themselves. And you're just touching it by scrolling. Oh, they look good. Because they've got a consistent brand. They look like they're doing it right. You have no idea what the real story is behind it.
Society of branding, and branding is image.
Yes.
Like we all have to have this brand, this image. Don't get me started on like when I heard on the Tim Ross basement podcast, he has a guest named Jenna. She's like a Christian psychologist, sex expert. She's amazing. And she said, our society, as well as the church, is a narcissistic society. We have birthed a narcissist. The root of narcissist, the name of it's in Greek mythology. It's the name of this creature who stared at his image so long he didn't care about real friends anymore. He just cared about his image, and he died there staring at himself. That's our society. We've created a whole society, and we wonder why narcissism keeps coming up all the time. We're creating the monster. We're allowing these people, we feed the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're becoming the monster because we're saying we hate these narcissists, but yet at the same time, like, we have to be cognizant of where is our narcissism and all of this. And check yourself, are you caring more about your brand than being authentic?
Oh my
Anyway,
God. I mean, we could do a whole other
that's a
podcast
whole,
on that.
see,
I mean,
gotta
stay
wait till the
tuned
next
for the
podcast.
multiple published manuscripts that are going to be popping out of Amy and I both. I mean, with my focus being on the egocentric, narcissistic, spiritual culture that got birthed.
Mhm.
Not going to go there, but
Yeah.
this is what we're attempting to rise out of. All right.
Yes.
So the path in front of us is the way out of the monster that has been fed for, let's say, the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's hope it doesn't take us 20 years to dig ourselves out. But the idea of being able to birth ourselves out of this false self, this inauthentic version of ourselves that has the biggest mouth, right? The loudest voice, and really getting quiet, right? Because you'll notice the people, and I see this popping up more and more all the time now. These little things is like, people are in their purpose and truly happy if every minute of their life isn't on social media.
Right.
Right? It's like, I remember that feeling, the infection of social media, where if I didn't put it on there, it didn't happen. Right? Everyone has to know that I did this. Everyone's got to know, or it's like it didn't happen. Right? And now the authentic version of ourselves says, who cares? Who cares? If anybody knows that you went and just did this thing that gave you so much joy, it's just for you. This little sacred moment is just for you. And with your kids, you spending more time behind your camera taking pictures than you are actually interacting in the event that you're a part of. Like, this is the version of ourselves that we're attempting to go back to something that feels real, that feels organic, that feels authentic. And it is inside of relationship. It is inside of our spiritual connection with our divinity, right? This second coming of the Christ consciousness, this thing that's going to envelop our planet. There's a lot of work that needs to get done to get there. And so when we think about the process of unearthing ourselves, right? We can go back to the analogy of gardening, right? Think about the layers of work that have to happen to get down to soil that's been turned and fertile and ready for planting. How many weeds have to be ripped up? How many roots do you need to dig up? And all of those things, that process is blood, sweat, and tears, but the joy inside the process is that you are unearthing a space to start something from the ground up that is real and organic and healthy and authentic. But in this season right now, where we are starting this process of turning over that soil, we're sad, we're grieving, we're tired, we're angry, we're resentful, we're bitter, we're mad that we're even having to feel the feelings that we're feeling.
Yep.
Like,
Exactly.
I get pissed sometimes just because I have to feel the feelings. Like, I'm angry that I have to feel the feelings.
I was angry that I was angry. That's why I was like, I was probably more angry that I was angry than I was actually angry. I was like, I just don't want to feel angry anymore, that I'm angry. And I'm like, what am I saying? But it was real. It was very real. I'm so tired of it. I was like, I'm sick of it. And when am I going to be done with this? The work's not done yet.
And I go back to that translation that I shared with you of the resurrection story, and how when Christ came to Mary for the first time, she was the first apostle that got to see him, hear him, feel him after the fact. And, we talk about all the time that this perfected version of ourselves in God's image looks nothing like we do here in this fleshy suit, right? Doesn't look like the flesh suit at all.
Right.
So we would not recognize ourselves or another person in that resurrected form, right? It was when he spoke, the feeling, the sound of his voice, and then the proof of the scars, right? That she knew that it was him.
Ooh.
And in the King James Bible, it says, do not touch me, right? Something to that effect, right? And it has been said that this gave it this image of, I am too holy, do not touch me, in my perfected self, a woman, do not touch me, right? When in fact, the original Aramaic translation meant to do not hold on to me, do not cry for me, do not hold on to me, because this is the better version of me. And even though you do not have me in body, I will be in your heart eternally. So do not hold on to me the way that I was. It's not do not touch me. It's let me go. Don't hold on to me the way that I was. Embrace me in this new way in your heart, because I will live there forever. But grief is very real, very, very real. To lose something that we love, even if it was something that was a false version of love, it doesn't matter. A false version
And you're
of love.
talking about, people may think of you saying it as another person, but we're talking about ourselves, like
Yes.
losing pieces of ourselves. Like, don't hold on to me.
A resurrected version of each of us. As we move through this season of unearthing those things that are truly authentic, that are truly purposeful, that are truly aligned with the identity of our original blueprint as God designed us to be before the world got a hold of us.
That's right.
This is what we are finding our way back to. And
Right.
it freaking hurts like hell.
Sucks, man. It's like it brings you to the point where sometimes you don't want to live anymore.
Yes.
It's gotten to that point. I don't think that I think it's good to be able to express that, but just to say like that's a natural feeling in this time. Sometimes it can get that deep and that bad. And not saying that you'll actually do anything about it, but that feeling is very real. Like this hurt, this is a death. There is death here. And like you said on the last podcast, like dragging all the dead bodies around. I mean, it's kind of similar to that. Like you have to release the death to be resurrected. You have to go face it, go into the darkness, be ready to die for it. It has to be the intention there. You have to be ready, because on the other side, every little thing that I pulled out and filled with my true identity is so solid now, nothing can ever touch it. And it feels so good. Like the opposite of what we're talking about, all this like shoving down. But when you replace that feeling and that you're able to have those emotions without all those old feelings that you have, it feels so good. Your body is in a state of ease more of the time than it is in disease. So this is what you were just talking about, is the rising of the authentic self right now that's happening. And I think it's good that I always think of things needing the propulsion behind them. Like it's good that we had some social media. It's good that we had these years of, being taken out of community. So we know what we're missing. To be in social media and that false image shoved in our face so much that we had to sit down and look at ourselves and see how we were participating, that we can now begin this new journey together of the authentic self. And that's my passion. I know it's your passion. And what does that look like to get there? And this is just one of those things that is a great tool to stop and think about and use the feelings that you're experiencing, and to be able to just stop and say, I'm going to be made new here, and I'm going to have a sense of ease in my body, and I'm going to feel better once I get through this.
And it's the proverbial but literal death, you know, and it's that feeling of, and I've had this conversation with a few people. It's like everyone's been in a place in their lives where the emotion is so extreme, you think you might die.
Yes.
And it's because of literally, we have to go back to our biology. We have got to go back to the humanness of how the body perceives pain. It cannot differentiate between mental pain, emotional pain, and physical pain. So when you have that level of emotional or mental pain come forward, where it feels like we can't breathe, our heartbeat changes, like our body thinks we're dying.
Right, exactly.
And in that moment, it would actually feel good to just be released from it.
Right.
Which is death, right? The ultimate release. And we realize that we will repetitively go through this simultaneous process of death and rebirth and death and rebirth and death and rebirth, right? But understanding that in this particular time period, I do feel that it is big. Like it just feels so much bigger. And the consistency of conversations that I'm having with people that are going through the same stuff. Everyone's going through the same stuff. And there is a camaraderie in that. There's like that sense of unification of like, thank goodness I'm not alone in this. And you know, that idea of being able to rebirth yourself. I mean, we're like moving into ground zero here in order to have a clean bed to plant in, you know, and to be able to, with discernment, pick the seeds that are going to be planted this time, because we don't want to have to rip out the thorny bushes again. We don't want to have to do all of this over again, right? And so being able to reframe this, right? And because Egan said to me, maybe we shouldn't be so focused on the death part, even though it's very real. It, you know, the feelings that we're having are very real, and the human experiences that we're having are legitimate. But what are we going to do with it? And how are we going to look at it in order to make sure that we aren't souring the very ground that we're attempting to plant new seeds in, right? And being able to take this perspective of new life, this perspective of a larger version of yourself that is full of empowerment and authenticity versus the codependent enabler victim, you know, that we were coming out of, the savior complex, the martyr, the human giving syndrome, you know, all of these things that we thought was service, when in fact it was the near enemy to it, right? And we got stuck there, and being birthed out of those things to give us an actual opportunity to build something brand new. Right. So reframing this as a rebirth.
I was just thinking as you were talking, it's like, I always think of like Christ heading to the cross, like to his purpose. And he literally was beaten almost to death, knew he had to hang on a cross with a painful death. And before all this happened, when he knew what was about to happen, God said, take this cup. I mean, he said, God, will you take this from me? And I remember recently feeling like that. Just take it. Can you just take it? And he's like, no, that's your destiny. You have to do this to birth your purpose. And the only thing that I could do is reframe my thoughts from I'm about to die here and it's going to be painful to I think about like Jesus heading to the cross. The only way that he could have gotten through all of that is to keep his mindset on his purpose, to keep his mindset on what the why and what's going to happen and what is not just you. Like, this isn't about you. I have to say it to myself all the time. And I say it to everybody else that I can. Like, this isn't just about you. This is collective. When my purpose gets birthed, if I can keep my eyes on the prize and I say, Amy, when you get through all this, imagine all the people that are going to be delivered because of you sharing your testimony, from you leading them to God to do their work. Like, that's all we want to do, is get people to do the work, because then they can reach back and grab the next person. So if we can just reframe our thoughts, it is the only thing that really keeps me going, is knowing that God gave me a vision and I believe it with all my heart that it's going to come true, and that the vision is me being in service. That's the vision. Ultimately, I know what I want to do, even though it's exciting. It's exciting, the vision that he gives me, and maybe even physically, like I'm going to get to travel and I'm going to have the money and I'm going to be having cute outfits and I'm going to do all these things, but that's not really what the purpose of me becoming the best me isn't for me. It's to be in service. It's to become who God made me to be, so that I can do the work for him, so I can help deliver people that are in pain all the time, that don't understand, that are in a state of confusion, and we can educate them. That's what you and I can do. We can educate them so they understand what's even happening right now. Because right now, everywhere I look, people are in pain and they don't know what this is. And if we don't help each other realize what's happening, they can end up back in the cycle. They'll just end up back in the cycle. And it's our duty to help each other, and to keep our eyes on the fact that you're not going through this for yourself. It's for other people.
And that's, here we are again with a message for the future versions of us. When our society hasn't yet been delivered out of the me society and the me culture, right? Where everything is about you now. This is where cancel culture has come from. It's the narcissistic spirit. It's just what you were saying, how everything is me. It's my truth. It's about me, everything me, right?
I care about what I look like and what you think of me, because my image is most important. Me.
Yeah. The instant gratification, me, what I need, right? And the idea of the only you that it's like the me, the you, the I part is equal to and connected to the I am, right? So it's whatever you were, the origin of you was supposed to be. That's where the you matters, because ultimately, once you drill into that purpose, then you see the rest of it is for the collective. So it's like you dig that purpose out, and then who that person is that you discover that God made you to be, then you've got to give it all away, right? It's like then you give it out to you serve with that. You know?
It's like you and your old identity really is just like the identity that the world made you to be becomes just this very selfish. You're living in your own world. You're living in your own emotions, and all that you care about is you and yours. But as God helps you to become who he made you to be, it's a very natural feeling to not be about you anymore. Like, that's what happens. Like, when you dig these things out, it's like, my anger, why am I establishing boundaries? Is it for me? I'm establishing boundaries so I can function and become the best person that I can be. So I don't got to be spending my days in these emotions anymore. I don't have to spend my days in these feelings of lack of boundaries anymore. If I have my boundaries established, I can walk in my purpose with my chest up. I'm establishing boundaries. No one's getting in my way. My purpose, the road that I'm on, no one's getting onto it, because my boundary. That's when you ultimately follow the road from the feelings back to emotions, and you dig this stuff out. That's all we're doing, is we're just making the path clear. God is going to make the path clear, and it's everything that he gave us, when we talk about identity, our identity is our purpose, is why we're here. It's not just who you are. Like you said, I am a leader. I am boss. I am bold. I am all of these things because God wants me to stand on stage and use this mouth that I've gotten in trouble for my whole life. Oh, she talks too much. Amy, she talks too much. She just goes on and on. Well, guess what? Give me a mic, because now I can't use the mic. My voice cannot be projected until the ground has been tilled. I am ready to plant the seeds without the weeds in it. And that the beauty of the natural, authentic part of me, that part grows. Then I can be given the mic. And that's what he's shown me. And when I'm given the mic, he is making sure it is not about me. In the end, all of the things that I'm doing is not about me. When I get that mic, it's all about anybody else that I can touch and just think about it. Like, when you are able to serve in community, how much you get back. Like when you're able to get out and be authentic in yourself, which I feel like I'm doing now more than ever, God is bringing me these beautiful people to speak over me, and they're able to speak over to me about my purpose. It's like the road signs are coming now. I'm on my lane. I'm in my lane now, and the road signs are just coming because everything flows again back to ease. Like I always, that feeling of ease versus disease. Like I feel good. My ailment, like I don't have a lot of ailments. I'm not saying that I don't get sick. I'm still human, of course. But a lot of times when I get sick, I can track it back. Why I got sick. We talk about it all the time. Like, why am I down and out right now? I'm sick. I got this cold. Oh yeah. I let myself get exposed because I didn't get myself out of these emotions. I started spinning out. I'm so depressed. I was feeling like that. I was admitting it to you. Like, I feel like there's a spirit of depression that's trying to get me. And I started pulling myself out before I got sick, because I know now I'm going to get sick if I get stuck here. So how can you do the work? How can you be in service if you're sick? You can't. Makes you angry. It loops you back into your feelings. So just staying, not staying, but becoming who God intended you to be, everything opens up. And all of these feelings you used to have, they kind of dissipate. You don't have them anymore because they're connected to your old identity.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start to learn your new identity and believe it and speak it, that's a whole nother episode because I'm passionate about that. Like speaking it, even before you believe it, speak it. Do not speak any negative. Don't speak negative over yourself, because it is what you said, you make what happens in your body happen. So be careful what you speak.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to bring it back around to where we started, because this is all a story of navigation, right? We want to be able to locate the blueprint and be able to read. What was the other thing that you said? Instead of blueprint, you said something else.
Put me back.
It's like whatever, the schematic, it's like you need to be able to read that, right? In order to get to where you're going, or like a map. You need to be able to read the road signs. Like you said, you need to be able to get a handle on what this is. And if you are denying your emotions, which is your compass, it is one of the compasses that's literally part of our anatomy, God's design to help us get there. You're going to keep getting lost. You're just going to keep getting lost because you're not using your tools and you're not following the navigation. So this idea of being able to grow ourselves inside of our design, inside of our different levels of intelligence, and learning how to work all with them together as a cooperative, the more likely we are to be able to get through the stormy parts of the journey, and our emotions will start to have a different power. right? They're never going to go away. You don't want them to go away.
No.
You want to be able to experience joy, right? And in order to experience joy, we have to experience anger, because we have to know where our joy is being taken away, right?
Yes.
And when someone takes your joy, you get pissed, right?
That's right.
So what boundaries do you have in place in order to maintain a joyful existence, right? So these are things that potentially are really new to people, right?
Right.
And so if you're really new with this, start where you know. Start with something that works for you. Maybe you're coaching with Amy and you start on the body, right? Start with the body and get to the soul. If you've already done that, come to me, start with the soul, and then we'll get to the body. It doesn't matter where you start. You're going to get to the other parts anyway.
That's right.
So the invitation in this season is kind of a multi-level thing. Be where you are. The invitation is to be where you are in this moment. Feel all of your feelings and sit down and have a dialogue with them. Write them out. Have a person you can talk, just processing. Have that person take notes for you, right? Be able to be in a space where you can get them out in front of you so you can start putting your toolkit together, figuring out where it is that you need to go, honoring each one of those emotions, talking to them, asking them why, right? Starting to figure out with this new version of you that wants to be birthed, what does he or she need as a safe place to grow, a beautiful garden space? What are the fences that need to get up? What are the defenses, for the critters that are going to come in, and, the bugs that want to eat you, and like all the parasites that want to take over, and, all of those things. What boundaries need to be put in place, right? But this idea of honoring yourself as a self and as a soul, as a whole, and being able to open yourself to the opportunity to immerse yourself in this very emotional season, because there's just so much there to explore.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of the ointment the whole time you were talking. It was just so good. I think today the invitation and the ointment kind of joined together. Because I was thinking of like grace. You said just be. And that is the ointment on that is grace for yourself, and to be okay. Like, it's okay. Give yourself permission to be okay with whatever you're feeling, and know that the actual emotion is the invitation. That is the invitation. Your emotion is the invitation. What are you going to do with that? And I think you gave a lot of like the toolkit of what you can do. So the ointment really is just allowing yourself to feel, but also like the work. Like, you got to do the work. There's nothing else we can say. You got to do the work. You got to be willing to go into the darkness and fight these things. You got to be willing to admit some things to yourself that you've carried for a long time. You've got to go back to some of those traumas. Like, we both are not technically advanced in therapy and therapeutic ways of healing trauma. Maybe that's something you can do. Maybe it's time. Something's been tapping on you. You need therapy for some of your trauma. I mean, some of our trauma is a lot more deeper than others. But to be able to write it down, speak it out. Do one or the other. If you don't have a lot of people to talk to, write it down, speak it out. And what else can you do? You can, after you've sat with yourself or talked, I have like the speaking, not just speaking, but really being able to maybe pray or meditate so you can have clarity on these things, so you can get to the truth of them. That's really important, because when you got a lot of filters on, it's really hard without a therapist or a coach to figure this stuff out. But if you can't afford either one of those, or you have no one to go to, like prayer, man, like prayer. God says, ask him and he'll give it to you. If you want wisdom, it's there. Ask him, he will give it to you. And part of the problem is that we don't just pray. Sometimes we'll say, well, we prayed about it. I'm like, did you really though? Did you really sit and pray? Because I'm guilty of it. I'm talking to Jenny. I'm writing it down. But did I ever just sit with God and say, can you tell me why this is angering me so bad? And I'm telling you, he answers within 48 hours. I know that's silly, but like within a day or two, I get the answer when I ask it. So just ask. And I think just taking care, taking care of your body is part of the ointment.
Mhm.
Taking care, knowing that these emotions are physical. They are physical. Take care of your body. Stop putting in, as Jenny said, like stop putting in food without life force. Stop, eat some leafy greens, like eat some lean proteins, leafy greens, get your fruit. Stop eating the crap food that you eat. It really does have a significant impact on your emotions. Your emotions are physical. So we've got to take care of the body. We've got to move. Just like we talked about earlier, the walking, whatever it is for you, working out, like move, it literally changes the physiology in your body and can move some of these emotions. So get to moving. Don't just sit still. Yeah, writing is great, but like get to moving, feed your body, right? Do these things that we know that we're going to say every time we're on here. Make sure you're getting that sleep. Make sure you're drinking your water. Take care of your body because emotions are really affected. It's like it's like when you're dehydrated,
Mhm.
like be careful that like you don't want to you don't want your body to be dehydrated because your emotions are, I mean, think about what happens, in your body, what happens when you're dehydrated. I mean, your body starts to shut down. Yet you got these emotions that want to come out. So take care of your body, talk to people. And I think that write down, pray to God, but ultimately the ointment is grace. And like, just be, like you said, just be and be okay with it and know it's human, and that if we can use the emotion as the invitation to try to teach us how we can connect to our authentic selves where our purpose resides.
So good. Well, we just want to say thank you to everyone that tunes in to listen, and takes this ride with us. And we so appreciate you and the time that you take out of your days, to be with us, to create this collective shift. And we do want to hear from you. So give us a like, throw a comment down, let us know what you're struggling with, let us know what you're celebrating, let us know what your testimony is. Please come find us on social media. We're going to be launching into our free coaching program very soon. But you have to be a part of the Facebook group, the Soul Butter Facebook community, to have access to that. So if you haven't already, please come over and become a part of that group and follow the page. We are also going to be launching new coaching programs probably within the next couple of months. So to be the first ones to have access to that, please make sure that you're following social media, please subscribe to our channel because we're going to be talking about it here as well. You can find us as we are on Instagram on the Soul Butter page, or Jenny Israel CPC, or Eags Strong, or Rebel Airs. Reach out if you want to get started now. And we can set something up for you to start this journey straight away. But regardless, if it's us or if it's someone else, please don't hesitate to reach out for help. These aren't things we are meant to do alone.
Yeah, that's great. And just a reminder that there are journal prompts below that if you just want to kind of, I mean, you can definitely do it on your own, but we're here. That's going to be part of our free coaching, going over these journal prompts. That we have some prompts that will help you walk through and navigate your emotions today, and take advantage of it because Jenny is brilliant and this is her wheelhouse. And I'm sure that you'll find yourself able to dig a little deeper with those.
Wishing you all the best, and we'll see you here next time.